independent science. An interesting suggestion around one of the roles being just to ensure that everybody around the table understands the rules of engagement, sort of a training a process around how we communicate with each other around the IOAC, how we respect the principles and rules of engagement as being something very, very important. So in terms of participation in the IOAC, we had a recommendation under 30 would be ideal. And there was an interest in including academic institutions in some manner in terms of the list of academic or other education institutes in the list of participants. We also just talked about how some of the participants were sort of lumped together. For example, we had renewable and non-renewable, and there was a suggestion to have a rep from each of those as opposed to sort of lumping the two together. But we actually had someone at our table who had some knowledge of that industry sector. Advice to the planning office in order to make it effective. We talked again about the need and role of independent science, and that might include traditional knowledge, a role for traditional knowledge in that independent science. And so, to sort of think about how to incorporate traditional knowledge, need for terms of reference, and very clearly understood the rules of engagement for the process. Working groups, we had marine transportation as one. We also had sustainable fisheries working group. This would be a group that would actually bring together all the different fishing interests as opposed to having separate sectors independent themselves. As well as there was a need to have some clear goals, timelines for those working groups. So not just have a working group to do, sit and talk to each other, but they actually had some specific tasks and deliverables. And it was very important that would be described and that would provide sort of legitimacy to those working groups. Meetings and local forums. We talked about having a workshop that would bring together sort of the current knowledge around integrated management processes from around the world. And in fact, that evolved into a discussion around that it would be probably very important to inform the IOAC once convened of so the lessons learned from those types of planning processes, so that everybody was sort of on the same page when starting off at the beginning. This is what we learned. These are the good things, these are the bad things. And then, what can we do in this particular process to make it even better? So sort of an orientation type workshop. There was an interest in a workshop on sustainable fisheries and also one on Enbridge. And we also talked about marine spatial planning as it would relate to the PNCIMA area. Some of the existing processes that it was important to consider. We acknowledged the existing fisheries advisory processes and the need to find a way to effectively bring in the Haida Gwaii National Marine Conservation Area advisory process, the Sky Islands advisory process, and making sure that those linkages are clear sort of at the outstart, so that we know how are those processes going to engage with the PNCIMA table. And in fact, that could be a way to bring in the marine spatial planning discussion. Is talking about these different layers of information in a planning type workshop. So in terms of the internet, we actually had a good discussion. Shouldn't assume everybody uses Outlook in terms of email, so there was a need to acknowledge that we're sort of using the PNCIMA website to communicate not everybody's outlook. We talked about making sure community libraries had access to not only hard copies, but were aware of the website, because a lot of libraries have access to computers, and so while you may not have a computer at home, you can go to your library, and the librarian might be able to show you how to get there. As well as using schools and colleges for advertising meetings. And also, if we are having meetings, that it's kind of up front and center on the actual website, the page, you can see the page, so that if we are having meetings, that's sort of the first thing you can sort of see when you're opening up the page. So it's a little more easier to access information on meetings. So, summary comments, it's an incredible opportunity. I think everybody sort of felt in our group that this is a great opportunity to do something new and different, and so we continue to sort of build on some of the expertise and knowledge of the world and just for the people on this room here to do something good here. So I'm just going to ask my table, see if there's anything else they would like to add. Did I miss anything else?
I would just like to mention that it was mentioned, or I mentioned that I'd love to see a goal we all agree on for us to hold out as a big picture so that it would help us to be more generous to each other and understand some things.
Right. And yes, sorry I missed that, but you spoke about that, and sorry about that.
And I would just add that on that training side, not only is it to understand terms of reference and how we operate and that sort of thing, but even broader, to work together to find a common goal, perhaps, or to build capacity so that we're all working towards something.
So we actually talked about what's consensus meeting, so make sure everybody understands what we're talking about.
Okay, last group. With respect to the Integrated Oceans Advisory Committee, we started actually with what's it going to do before we got into the questions of composition and responsibilities. It really came down to sort of being pragmatic about what it can deliver over a 2-year period. And I think the advice from a number of the people in the group was that it should be pragmatic. It should be focused on what it's possible to deliver in terms of concrete outcomes, recognizing that there'll be more work to do after 2 years. And one of the analogies was made to the Central Coast LRMP Phase 1, where there was some spatial outputs, there was some definition and commitment to EBM, and there was other areas identified that needed more work, and that was dealt with in Phase 2. So, by comparison, if PNCIMA sets its sights on delivering some concrete outputs, some decisions, some spatial decisions, and some direction on EBM, and anticipates there's going to need to be follow-up process, that would be wise. And that needs to be done in keeping with the available resources, recognizing a resourcing strategy is going to be developed in the next few months. So then, if that's the approach, and one looks at the membership, and substantively in terms of the types of members, there wasn't much comment on additions, only that perhaps the forest sector interest is going to be brought in through transportation, given the shipping and storage of logs. That's certainly one of the forestry's interests in the ocean itself. And then most of the conversation focused on the question of how to ensure effective community representation. And there's a number of different proposals that have been made, which are really driven from